and thanks for tuning back in. So today I'm going to be showing you how to make this long sleeve crop top with this cool X detailing here, and it's perfect to wear with all your high-waisted skater skirts, and I've used some thicker fabric so that you can wear it all winter long with some tights and like boots and everything like that to stay warm. So let me show you how to do it. It's a lot of fun to make. You'll need just about a yard of a stretch knit fabric, and as always check the remnants because this cost me under $3. I used the thicker weight fabric with a nice texture, so it's perfect for cold weather, and it's very important to make sure it has enough stretch to be taken on and off. Grab a well-fitting tank top for a template and fold it up about the length you want your crop top to be, then fold the tank top in half and pin it to keep it together. Fold a portion of your fabric over, making sure that the fabric stretches this way, which is perpendicular to the fold. Pin your tank top onto the fabric with the folds lining up. Cut around the tank top about a ½ inch wider around the neckline, shoulders, and armholes to allow for seam allowance, and then I cut around the side with about an inch extra, and I did this because my black fabric isn't as stretchy as the tank top pattern, so I knew I need more room for a good fit. Don't worry about seam allowance on the bottom because we'll be adding a waistband, which I'll discuss more later. Cut a second bodice piece, and I actually would recommend cutting one neckline lower at this point for the front, but I don't end up doing that until later. Lay the bodice pieces with right sides facing together and then pin and stitch along the sides and shoulders. Sew with a ballpoint needle and use decent thread because it makes sewing stretch fabric very easy, and use a stretch or zigzag stitch so that your seams won't pop when stretched. I used my machine's straight stretch stitch, which sews one stitch forward, one back, then one forward again each time, and it worked perfectly with my fabric. Turn the top right side out and try it on, and then take it in if needed. Mine fit well, but I wanted it to be shorter, so I marked my desired length with a pin. I trim off the excess fabric since my top was too long, and like I mentioned earlier, we'll be adding a waistband, and that'll end up adding 1½ inches of length. So at this stage, you'll actually want to trim your crop top to be about an inch shorter right now than the final length you want it to be. Now it's time to cut the sleeves, so grab a sleeve pattern like this handy dandy sleeve cut from an old shirt, which I discussed in this video linked in the description, and using that sleeve is so easy because you don't need to draft a pattern. Fold your fabric in half with the stretch running in the direction of the white arrows. Lay your folded sleeve on the fold of the fabric, then pin and cut it out with about a ½ inch extra for seam allowance on all sides, and with whatever length you wish. Fold your sleeve over with right sides facing, then pin and sew along the straight edge, and repeat for a second sleeve. Turn a sleeve right side out and then use a pin to mark the top center of the sleeve's curve. Match up the outside shoulder seam of the bodice to the top of the sleeve's curve that you just marked with a pin, then pin them together, making sure that the correct sides of the fabric are being pinned together. And here my bodice is turned wrong side out and the sleeve is right side out. Stuff the sleeve through the armhole and then match up and pin the bodice's armpit seam to the seam on the sleeve, and again the correct sides of the fabric and seams should be lined up and pinned together when you're pinning them. Now that the shoulder and armpit seams are pinned, line up and pin the rest of the armhole together in smaller increments. Stitch around the armhole to attach the sleeve using your preferred stretch or zigzag stitch. Then go ahead and attach the second sleeve too. At this point, I decided I wanted to add the cool X strap detailing on the front because I actually didn't plan that at first, so I'm trimming the neckline here to be a scoop neck, but like I mentioned earlier, it's more convenient to just lower the neckline when you first cut the fabric so the front has room for the straps. I'm really sorry that my camera didn't record this that clearly, but to prepare the neck for hemming, fold the raw edge of the neckline over about a ½ inch or so, making sure your top is turned inside out here so you're folding toward the wrong side of the top, and then pin down the folded fabric around the neckline. For the straps that'll go on the front, grab your tape measure and decide about where they'll lay and how long they'll need to be. Add at least an inch to that number and then cut 2 strips that measure that new number as the length by 2 inches wide. Fold and pin the strip, then sew along its length using a fairly small seam allowance to reduce bulk. After sewing them, turn them right side out, and I know it is a bit of a pain in the you-know-where, but the easiest way I found was to use a safety pin to turn it in on itself, and I promise it can be done, just have a little patience and you'll get it. Lay your straps out on the pinned neckline, measuring to make sure everything is even, and then pin them into place where you want them. As you can see, try to position the seams on the back of the straps and make sure they're facing up now as you pin, so that when your top is facing the correct way, your seams will be hidden on the back. Stitch around the neckline to hem it and attach the straps, and you can use whatever stitch you've been using, but I changed mine from the straight stretch stitch to this decorative stretch stitch in blue. The wider stitch keeps everything laying flat, and it looks really cool too. As you sew, just use your presser foot as a guide, and when you get to the straps, just adjust the foot as necessary and then sew right over them, removing pins as you go. I ended up with a little pucker by one of the straps, so I just removed those couple of stitches from the hem and then resewed them so the hem would lay flat. If your straps are too long, just trim off the excess now to reduce bulk so that it'll lay nice when it's flipped over. Hem the sleeves by folding and pinning the raw edge over toward the wrong side of the fabric and then stitch just like you did with the neckline. Now apparently I lost the footage of this, so I drew a diagram, but cut 2 pieces of your fabric that measure 4 inches high by whatever the width of your crop top is, including its seam allowances. Lay the pieces together with right sides facing, then pin and sew along the 2 shorter sides. After sewing, turn the band right side out, and then fold the side seams in half so you're matching and then pinning the inside of the seam together on each side. And then you'll want to stretch out the band so that the entire thing is now doubled over and it's only 2 inches wide, and then only the neat sides of the seams are showing. Pin the top raw edges together too. Finally, with the bodice right side out, slide the waistband around it so that all the raw edges are lining up at the bottom, and then match up the side seams of the bodice and waistband, then pin and sew everything together. Once sewed, fold the waistband down and you've completed this awesome crop top. Thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe, and I hope everybody has an awesome day. A little, not that anybody wants to see all this. Squirrels. I'm rambling. Okay. I suck at modeling. Okay, it's cold.